Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday and happy early Valentine's Day for anybody who just wants to have a little bit more love for themselves, even if you're not in a relationship. That is awesome. This is a perfect time of year to be thinking about that and maybe go get yourself some flowers or anything like that that can help brighten your day. And hopefully this is another example of something that will brighten your day and brighten the start of your week, because of course it is our bright spot video. We had a break last week because I was in New York, but I am home now and ready to get back into my normal routine. Yes. So for those who don't know me, my name is Taryn Hewitt. I'm the organizer of this group, Work-Life Balance for Overachievers. I am also a work-life balance coach. And I am also a human resources director in the corporate world, which is part of what initially got me started with this group, right? Because I understand what it is to be balancing work, balancing life when you have a big corporate role, and you also have other things that you want to do on your side, like have a business along these lines, right? And so what we do with these Bright Spot videos every week is we offer up tips that you can use and you can apply right away in your life to, first off, make Monday a bright spot in the week. And second of all, hopefully move you a little bit closer to the work-life balance that you are hoping to achieve. So today's topic is one I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about how to find your perfect planner approach. And the reason that I'm super excited about this one is because this is actually a topic that was requested by a member of the group. And so this is just a good call out for that. If there's ever a topic that you're interested in, you are always welcome to drop that into the comments of any of these videos. You're welcome to send me a DM about it. This group is ultimately for all of you, right? So I want to make sure that we're talking about the things that you're interested in that will ultimately help you achieve the work-life balance that you're looking for. So that being said, we're going to dive right in. And I'm going to kick it off by just acknowledging, right, that there's several different ways that you can use a planner. So whenever I think of a planner, I tend to think of something that includes both a calendar and to-do lists that might include other elements depending on what you're using. But today we're going to focus primarily on those two core elements of the calendar and the to-do list. And what I have found in general, just to group this into two quick buckets, right, is that you typically will find people either using an electronic planner of some kind, a handwritten planner of some kind, or some combination of the two. I actually use a combination of the two myself. And so before we really kick into the how to think through this, let's talk for a moment about some of the pros and cons of both of those options, right? So a handwritten planner oftentimes is going to make me feel a little bit better to use. So that's a very common thing to hear people say, that they just prefer the experience of a physical pen to physical paper. That I highly relate to that. I started off using paper planners as well. And so I completely understand that feeling. And it's very, very common. Handwritten planners oftentimes are also going to feel maybe a little bit more personal. So there are a lot of really wonderful planners out there. One that I personally recommend is Bloom Daily Planners. You can get them on Amazon or directly through their site. But using Bloom as an example, they've got a lot of great quotes at the top of their pages that make you kind of stop and think and can brighten your day a little bit more as well. They also have oftentimes will have additional exercises to help you focus around values, which is something that we're going to be talking about a lot in the coming weeks, but also just thinking about your mood. There just can be a lot of additional, maybe like bonus materials associated with handwritten physical planners. And so those are some of the big pros. Another big pro is that with a physical planner, a lot of times there's not a lot of thought required with it. You can just pick it up and start using it right away. And there are still a lot of ways that you can kind of individualize your experience with that. Depending on how important that is to you, you can use different colored pens. There are I think they're called bullet journals and bullet planners now, right? Where you can kind of like doodle and you can color in them and you can kind of get through some of those things that can also include some level of like stress relief, right? So there's, again, a lot of really great bonus aspects to that physical planner. Now, the con of a physical planner is that it may take more time to use and maybe a little less convenient. So it may be a little less convenient because obviously a physical planner is oftentimes going to be a little bit bigger. It may be harder to carry with you. I'm personally somebody who does not carry a purse generally, or at least not a very big purse. And that oftentimes was something that I kind of struggled with a physical planner. But again, there are ways to use it. So that shouldn't be something that derails you from a physical planner if that's something you're really interested in. Now, an electronic planner is often going to be very convenient because usually you can manage them through different apps on your phone. That means that most of us have our phones with us all the time. That means your planner is with you all the time. So if you ever need to use it or add something to your calendar or your to-do list, it's right there. It's at a click of a button and generally very easy. There's also a lot of great things that you can do for more individualized organization in an electronic planner, such as color coding of events. You can set up time-based reminders that can help you utilize it with maybe a little bit less thought on a regular basis, which is always good in my book. Now, of course, the con of that is oftentimes you have to either know how to do all of that, or you have to be willing to take the time to learn. Not everybody is going to be, tech savvy. And so an electronic planner may not be as convenient for those people. And, if you're not going to take advantage of all of those extra features of an electronic planner, then it may not be worth it, right? So the reality of the situation is that the best planner approach is ultimately the one that fits you, that you'll use and will actually achieve your objectives, right? So there's not one perfect way to plan. There's just the perfect way for you. So, and the one thing I will say is that this is also something that is very likely to change over time. So, I mentioned before, I used to be 100% physical planner for anything that was in my personal life and electronic for work. Now I have switched and I'm probably 90% electronic I'm 100% for work. I'm electronic, and then I'm probably like 90% personal electronic, with 10% or so being physical. So it's going to change over time. The other thing that I want to stress with this is that if you are trying to find a planner approach that's really going to work for you and help you be productive and ultimately help you balance your life, there's going to be a lot of trial and error to it. So, I've mentioned there's combinations to this. There's a lot of different ways that you can ultimately utilize a planner. And so to discover your personal approach, what we're going to actually do today is the bulk of the video is we're going to talk through a few questions that you can answer for yourself. And by answering these questions, what you're going to do is start to whittle down what the approach is that's going to work best for you. Okay. And then what I'm going to challenge you to do is apply that trial and error approach to it. So what that means is you will walk away today with an idea of what you might do to start your new planning habit or adjust your planner approach at wherever you're at with that. And then you're going to continue evaluating it over time and seeing what's working, what's not working, and keep tweaking it using these questions until ultimately you've gotten to the point that you have your perfect planner approach, okay? And so what I'm going to do is talk through the questions, give you some examples, and then we'll go back through them again so that you have them all in one just quick snap, okay? So the first question I want you to think about is, what is ultimately your objective? in using a planner. Another way that you can think about this question is what problem are you trying to solve by using it? So are you trying to stay organized? Are you trying to be more productive? Are you trying to remember important dates? Whatever that reason is ultimately going to influence part of what you do or how you start to think about this. So for me, there were really two primary reasons that I started really focusing on using a planner. One was that I wanted to be able to remember important dates and routines that didn't happen every day, that might happen, once a year, once a quarter, things like that. And then for me, because I do have my corporate role and I've got my business and I'm very active in my personal life with a lot of different activities, I often have so many tasks and ideas running through my head that I needed a way to capture them and then organize them so that I would actually do them, right? So um, for me, having something that included a to-do list was really important. I also have a pretty well, it's not crazy, but I have a somewhat crazy calendar in my corporate role between a lot of different meetings. I coach during the week in addition to my corporate role. So again, it's really important for me to be able to stay organized and understand what's coming next, what I need to be prepared for in order to do my work efficiently, manage my life and the balance between the two things, and then also just maintain my own stress and sanity, right? Um, so that's the first question or set of questions is what's your objective and what problem are you trying to solve? Now, between a handwritten and an electronic planner, which one are you more likely to use, right? So that's, again, a very important question. If you're not drawn to electronic planners and you're starting this off for the first time, then don't start with an electronic planner. Try it out with a physical one and try, some different methods to see what works, what doesn't work. And if you're having a hard time with the physical one, you can always consider electronic down the line, right? So remember, anything that you're deciding right now does not have to be locked in stone. In fact, I encourage you to play with it and experiment until you find the perfect approach. So, I said between handwritten and electronic, which one are you more likely to use? Another important question that goes alongside that is which is more likely to help given the problem that you're trying to solve. So for me, I originally started with handwritten because, again, I love that feeling of a physical pen against physical paper. Um, However, it was less effective for me because I don't carry a purse, like I mentioned before. So when I was out, with friends or I was out grocery shopping, whatever the case was, if I had an idea, I didn't have a great place to put it. So then maybe I was keeping it electronically and that added an additional step to then add it to the physical planner, right? It just became too cumbersome in my personal view for how I wanted to manage things. Again, for somebody else, that may be perfectly fine. Somebody else may not have that concern about moving something from electronic to physical. And so if that doesn't bother you, then go for it, right? So the next question is, you've most likely tried something along these lines before. If this is a topic that you're interested in, you may be already using a planner of some kind, or maybe you've tried it before. So if that's the case, then what worked well or what is currently working well, and what didn't or what isn't working well right now, right? So answering those questions will help you start to think about adjustments that you might want to make. Again, remembering that you're not locked into any particular one, but essentially answering those will help you understand either if you want to play with the combination, if you want to switch styles, or if you just need to maybe think a little bit differently about what you're doing with them. So the example that I'll give for myself is for the longest time when I was using a personal planner, I was writing my to-do list every day. It became like a habit and a routine that I had built in. And I loved it on the one hand because it gave me this moment to just sit down with pen and paper and just get everything out. And that piece of it was really wonderful. The piece that didn't work for me personally was that I eventually found myself writing and rewriting the same list over and over again, because again, I oftentimes have a very, very long to-do list, and I typically am not going to get through the full list in a single day. So, depending, like for me, that was a little bit of a struggle to stay organized and keep my thoughts organized in having to like rewrite it all and trying to figure out how to keep it in one place. Again, there are ways to do that. For some people, maybe you just have like a master list that you're writing on, and then each day you're just pulling over the like 2 or 3 things that you're going to focus on for that day. That could be a very, very effective way to manage a physical planner. It just wasn't for me personally. And then the last piece that we're really going to talk through is less of a question, but it is more of I guess it is a question, but what I'm going to just highlight for this last bullet is that the last thing that you have to do to really build a truly effective planner approach is really most likely going to be habit-based, right? So you can have the best calendar, the best to-do list, the best approach for you, but if you don't use it, it's meaningless, right? And so there's going to be some element of this that's going to require you to build a habit that may not already exist. So the question you can ask yourself is, what habit do you need to review in order for this to be effective for you? Is it a daily review at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day? Is it time-based reminders? If it is time-based reminders, how are you making sure that you pay attention to them rather than just, acknowledging them and moving on, right? So there's most likely going to be something that you need to think through. And just, you've probably heard this a million times in your life, right? But with a habit, the big thing to remember is that it takes a good 21 days or so to build a habit. So what I would suggest is, if this is something you're going to try, make a decision on which approach you want to take. Once you make that decision, really commit to that 21 days to stick with that and work on the habit that you need in order to make that approach work. And then if after that 21 days, it's still not working, then it's time to review, right? So what you're going to essentially do in that review stage is you're going to go back through these questions and analyze essentially what's working, what's not working. And just by answering these questions again, what you're going to find is exactly what you need to work on, right? So I'm going to emphasize that a bit by just recapping the questions, right? So if we go back, the total list of questions that you're going to think through is, what's your objective? What problem are you trying to solve? Between handwritten and electronic, which one are you more likely to use? And which is most likely to help given the problem that you're trying to solve? Okay, and then with what you've been doing already, or what you've tried in the past, what has worked well and what has not? And then what habit do you need to build, right? So that's the full list of questions. You're going to work your way back through them in that review stage. So if you go back to what I had said earlier in the video, I mentioned that you will probably have to experiment. You'll probably have to tweak, right? So you may start on this and find that there's one specific element that is not working right, or is not really working as efficiently as you would like. And so if you think about it, right, the question is, what's your objective? What problem are you trying to solve? You can take these questions and you can focus them in on that specific issue, right? So use these questions as broadly or as narrowly as you need to in order to continue experimenting and continue refining your approach. So that is actually the end of these specific exercises that I'm going to recommend. I will tell you, this is something, it's something that can have a pretty profound difference in your life. And also so one thing you'll hear me talk about a lot when we talk about work-life balance is it's about creating space and creating also like mental time and mental energy, right? And so having a good planner approach is pretty pivotal to that, especially if you are somebody who's very active in a lot of different things, you have a busy job, right? Those things, like all the different activities you have, the different tasks you need to complete, they can build up really quickly and then get your brain into a space of feeling overwhelmed or feeling confused. And so this is one way that you can really take control of all of those things that are going on to figure out the best way to manage them for yourself so that you have less stress, you feel more organized, and again, you have that mental space and energy for all of the other things that are really important for you. So if you are playing with this, the one thing that I would really encourage you to think through is, how much will this help me? If I'm thinking about adjusting my planner approach, how much will doing that help me? And then what's the positive impact that it's going to have? So I encourage those questions primarily because while a planner approach can be very effective and can also be very helpful, it's also probably one of those things that's very easy to push to the side, right? Because it may feel small, it may feel less important in the grand scheme of other things that you're doing, but because we know it can have such a big impact, those questions can kind of help you think through that a little bit and hone in on the importance of it and why it's worth your time and worth your effort. Now, any new habit still takes work, right? So this is a fairly simple approach once you sit down and you apply it, but it does take that time from a habit perspective. So make sure that you're applying that. I will be the first to admit that there are a few things that I could improve with my own planner approach. And I think most of them are probably habit driven. And so I'm even using this video as a good reminder for myself to go back and play with those. And then what I would say beyond that is this video very intentionally was kept somewhat broad, right? Because again, lots of people are going to have different opinions on which approach is best for them. It may be at some point, if people find value in it, maybe eventually we'll do a video that is very specifically focused on physical planner tips or recommendations, or electronic planner tips and recommendations. If something like that that's very focused is something that you're interested in, please feel free to drop that into the comments or send me a message. The other thing I would encourage is you may have been playing with this for a while and you may already have an idea of specific challenges or specific things that are not working for you. If that's the case, and if you're struggling to come up with alternative ideas, drop that in the comments too. I'm happy to give recommendations, happy to help you brainstorm ideas, but we also have this really wonderful group that we're all a part of that is ultimately intended to be a community that's helping each other, right? And so even other people may have encountered the same thing that you're encountering, and they may know exactly what helped them or be able to generate other ideas that you can play with. So use the group, use the comment section of the video, and hopefully you found this to be very, very helpful. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, a wonderful Valentine's Day if you're celebrating, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.